Okay, we are now recording, just to let you all know. And thank you so much for being here today. I think one of your most precious commodities in life is actually your time. And so for you just to voluntarily come to devote time to this presentation means a lot to me. And I'm very grateful for that. Back in July, they were looking for volunteers to do the J term. We were actually preparing for these a while ago. And I was really excited to volunteer because I really believe in the power of understanding the different dimensions of well-being and how you can use these dimensions to help you in setting yourself up so that you're not just surviving life, but you're actually thriving through life. So what I would love to do starting off with is, could you all just put in the chat for me? The question is what you think a joyful life feels like. Not what does it look like, but what does it feel like to you? What does a joyful life feel like? And you can put as many words in there as you want, or just put one word, whatever you want. What does a joyful life feel like to you? As you're doing that, you'll see on my background, I have, instead of my boring old office, I actually put a picture of a mountain. And we actually took this picture this past summer. We were out in the state of Washington, and I've never been hiking out there, and it was one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. We love to hike. The snow was on the mountains and there were flowers. And kicking it right off, I want to share that it's important to surround yourself with things that lift you up. And whether it's a photograph on the wall, or if it's just surrounding yourself with some good friends, to be cognizant of that. So I love what you're saying: fulfilling, balance, connection, peaceful. When I think of well-being, I also think of those things. And I think about feeling joy. I think about feeling that sense of balance and calmness in my life. I don't feel stressed, so to speak, although there is good stress. It's not all bad. But it's important to recognize these things. When we're striving to improve our lives, we're often being caught with a lot of quick, rich schemes and lose weight fast type of opportunity. And this costs nothing, really, what I'm going to be telling you today. So I'm going to pull up my screen, and I'm going to look at MC to see if she can see it. Can you see that? Thank you so much. So when you think about how it's working in our society right now with well-being trends, well, you probably are going to guess correctly if I asked you. The trends around well-being actually are lower than they've been since 2008. Our obesity is climbing, our diabetes is climbing, anxiety and depression. So the trend line is not going in the direction that we want. We see a lot of this anxiety too on our campuses. And so I'm hopeful that today will begin a new journey for you in setting yourself up to, again, create that life where you're really flourishing and you're not just trying to survive college. There is a professor, and her name is Dr. June Gruber, and she is a scientist, and she has researched well-being a lot. And one of the things that she has done in her studies is she's recognized that the more you accept who you are, the happier you will be, and the less likely you will have experienced anxiety and depression. So I want to start off with that concept that first and foremost, you actually hold all of this in the nugget of your hands, and accepting who you are and knowing that you're really great just the way you are. It doesn't mean that you don't need to set up goals and start thinking about setting up these dimensions of well-being that I will talk about in a minute. But I do want to keep going back to that place that you don't have to get something or be something to start fulfilling yourself with overall well-being. So who am I? Well, I'm Cindy Wright. I know MC knows me. We've worked together and everything. I'm the director. My title is Director of EES, Student Success and Wellbeing. And I oversee a lot of different programs and I sit on a lot of different committees. And all of these things are really so that I can help set you all up for success now and when you walk across that stage and get that diploma. I oversee the campus recreation program. We will be opening the Jaeger Center, just a quick little tidbit. Not as many hours as we wish right away because of the COVID, but we will be opening that up. But I oversee like our fitness facilities and our intramural programs and our club sports. I sit on retention committees where I'm looking at why students might not really have that sense of belonging while they're here. I oversee the financial well-being committee on campus, and we're going to be talking about finances in this presentation. And recently, I received certification from the University of Pennsylvania in a course called Positive Psychology, the Foundations of Positive Psychology. And a lot of what I'm going to share with you today is from that course and another course I took that is called The Science of Wellbeing. And that course was taken at Yale. And it's one of the most popular courses that Yale has ever given is the Science of Wellbeing, which goes to show that a lot of people are trying to figure out what's the secret to having this joyful life. At the very end, I would love for you to let me know if you're interested or shoot me an email. I'll put my email in the chat because I have a handout for you that I would love to give to you. And on that handout, it has all kinds of different links to different things that we're talking about today and exercises that you can do. Because I know if I were you and I know me, and when I'm showing up for any type of presentation like this, I really want to get something out of it, something tangible, something that I can take with me after it's over. Even if it's one nugget of information, how can I help you with that? And so I did prepare that handout for you. Our goals for this workshop, this session, is about looking at defining personal well-being and what does that mean, exploring Gallup's 5 essential elements of well-being. Gallup is just one of the types of models that are out there. There are many other types of models of well-being. I do like Gallup a lot, and I'll tell you why. And then I really want to help you begin the process of creating an individualized action plan to develop your own well-being. It's not enough just for me to tell you why you should do what you do. It's really some thinking and reflection on your part to start to set yourself up. The really neat part of what I'm going to share with you is we are going to look at a lot of science with this. So we're going to look at the psychological sciences, and then we're going to put those scientific findings into practice. Because there is something that is called the G.I. Joe fallacy. And what that is just having enough information. Having information really isn't enough to make a difference in your life. You need to do something with that information. And so I'm going to teach you, there's some things that we think are going to make us happy, and we're going after them. And you're going to see where you might want to change course a little bit. It's not going to make you maybe as happy as you thought it would. And then what are some of the things that can bring that joy, bring that balance, bring that connection in your life that you mentioned in the chat? There was a survey that was done, and it's called the Harris Poll Survey, and it's recognizing that Americans are not getting any happier. And in fact, like I said, we're seeing these trends going in the wrong direction, and we're concerned about that. And I'm concerned about that, especially from a higher education standpoint. I know you will walk across that stage and you will have that degree, that diploma in your hand, and that's fantastic. And you'll get a job and you'll have this career, but there's so many other dimensions and richness to life than just going through academics and having a career that I'm going to point out to you. So let's unpack the definition of well-being. And let's give the example that you are at school right now and you call back home and you talk to your loved ones and they're like, how you doing, sweetheart? How's it going? And you're like, yeah, it's all right. I'm not sick. And they're like, oh, that's good. That's great. And you go on about your conversation. Well, well-being isn't just the absence of not being sick. It's much more multidimensional and interdependent. It is like flying an airplane. And you think about being a pilot in an airplane. Well, there's not just one lever that you touch and you put that plane up in the air. There's a lot of levers up there and buttons that you're pushing. You need to know how fast you're going. You need to know how high you are. You need to know how big the plane is, how many passengers are on the plane, what's the wind chill factor coming at you. All of those things come into play as you're making sure that you're getting on the right course to your destination. Well, that's the same metaphor with well-being, is making sure that you have these different dimensions in a place that you understand what they are, and then you understand the tools to set yourself up after that. So the definition really is, it's not looking at the absence of disease, but it's extremely complex. And we're going to go through some of these different aspects of it. Like, of course, it's about your physical health and being well and not being sick, but it's also about your financial and your social and your emotional. The community, do you feel like you have a sense of belonging in the community that you're in? When you can get these dimensions in sync in this multidimensional way, you really start to develop this happiness and this peacefulness and a life satisfaction that is coming. It is not to say that it is one and done and you figure it out now and that's all you need to do. It is a lifelong journey, but now I'm going to give you these tools that you can keep in your hip pocket so that you'll understand that. There is a psychologist, she's an American psychologist. Her name is Dr. Carol Riff. If you Googled her, her last name is spelled RYFF. She's done a lot of research around well-being. In fact, she's even done an assessment on how to measure well-being. And she feels well-being is defined by optimal functioning. But in a way, it's even more than that, by another psychologist, and his name is Dr. Martin Seligman. And he actually, I took several courses from him at UPenn in this Foundations of Positive Psychology course. He is called the father of positive psychology because he has developed a lot of tools. He's done a lot of studies, a lot of research. He's written a lot of books. If you Google his name too, you'll find so much information about that. Even if you go to UPenn's, it's called the Masters of Applied Positive Psychology, you will see him. Well, he has developed a model that is called PERMA, and PERMA stands for positive emotions. It stands for positive relationships, meaning in your life, and accomplishments. So those are two more examples besides the Gallup example that I'm going to talk to you about in a minute. You also might hear two more terminologies that you've not heard of before, the Whodonic and the Udomonic. And these are also associated with well-being. What's really interesting is that these two terms have come from the 4th century. So our ancestors were concerned about well-being. It's just not us. This is not a new phenomenon. And this doesn't just pertain to college students. So our ancestors were very interested too. With the Whodonic, it says that you're to maximize your pleasure and minimize your pain. And then the Udomonic is looking at experiencing the meaning and the purpose of life. If any of you have ever taken a science class where you've learned about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and at the very top of that is the self-actualization, well, it's that thinking that you arrived in the meaning and the purpose of your life, but you actually need both of these to really have them combined in the sense of being able to flourish. So we're going to talk about Gallup's essential elements of well-being. And why Gallup? Because I believe in Gallup. If you look at Gallup and you see the surveys that they do, the studies that they do, the books that they write, if you see the name Gallup next to it, you can be assured that it is a high level in actual really vetting that survey and those studies out. And Gallup went around the world, actually, and they did a study. They studied over 150 countries, trying to find out what makes people joyful, what brings meaning in their life, how can people find overall well-being, the elements that shape that life. Well, Gallup developed these dimensions. This is a holistic view of what contributes to your overall well-being, and all these different dimensions can help you. Now, this is Gallup's model, but like I said, there are other models that are out there. And as we go forward, these models can be shaped for you to individualize what is most important to you. For example, in Gallup, you'll see that they have purpose. I actually tweaked that when I'm going to talk about each of these dimensions. I added career to that purpose because I know that's on all of your minds right now. There is the social aspect of an overall well-being, the financial, the community, and the physical. Now, what's interesting is a lot of models leave financial off. And I told you I chair the financial well-being committee on this campus. And I do so because we know that finances is a big stressor for our students in college. Whether you have loans or not, finances creates a lot of stress in all of our lives forever. It's not like you're going to graduate and get a job and now you're never going to have financial stress. You will have it for the rest of your life, most likely. And so, but recognizing that these are dimensions that can help you, and we're going to unpack each of those going forward. So let's look at career and purpose and how you occupy your time and simply like what you're doing every day. Well, what's pretty staggering is in a Gallup survey around the world, they have discovered that over 2/3 of individuals are disengaged in their work. That's a lot of individuals. Only around 20% really feel like they like what they do every day. So we need to make sure that we're setting you up for success when you find that career and that it's matching that purpose for you in your life. And it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of thought and it takes some reflection. I do want to give a quick plug to our Career Engagement Center, because I don't know about any of you, but trying on a pair of jeans, I never buy them online. I have to go and physically try them on. Well, the same thing with a career. How do you really know what you want unless you do like a one-day, maybe an informational interview, or you go and you shadow, or you spend a week or a semester really trying to vet, what does that internship feel like? What does that career feel like? Do I feel like I belong there? Is it really resonating to my sense of purpose? Do I like the smells? Do I like the people? Those are some things, and it's an easy way for you to have that experience before you commit. People that have high levels of well-being in their career have higher levels of thriving, they're healthier, they have less stress and less anxiety. There is another Gallup poll that was done in 2008. And in this Gallup poll, they wanted to measure the workers to see, was there a correlation between workers that were disengaged and rates of depression and anxiety? And guess what? There is. The more you are disengaged, you're twice as likely to have levels of depression and anxiety because it's ramping up. You don't have that sense of belonging and purpose that we want you to have in that career. So I think it's really important to pay attention to what you're deciding to move towards, obviously, for the career. And we're going to learn in a minute that it's not all about the money, because some of you will pick careers because you're like, I'm going to make a lot of money. Well, it's not all about the money. So the social well-being has taken a hit, hasn't it, with the pandemic? And social well-being is having strong relationships and love in your life, and really recognizing that some of the most memorable moments of your life are spent with others. And our moods are really synchronized around the social groups that we are with. So think about that for a second and think about who you're with and think about how does your group influence you? There's a lot of studies that are done, one in particular from Harvard looked at well-being and looking at the dependence on how it's connected to your social network. And there's a high correlation of what habits you're going to build, how happy you are, how healthy you are, how much anxiety you have. And when you have that social group, that it can really be a wonderful opportunity for you to minimize your stress. That's the group that you can go to when you're feeling challenged. This is the group that you can go to when you want to just go and have fun on a weekend. And often I meet with students that are struggling. And one of the areas that students struggle is the social group. And they feel like they don't have a social group, or they don't have that close-knit group of friends. And so I also want to give you advice, and we're going to talk about thinking about saying yes when someone asks you to do something, and for you to also extend saying yes, would someone please come with me to join a club? The other thing is, I want you to pay attention to not putting too much pressure on maybe just one person in your social group, because you want to be able to bounce some ideas across, larger groups of individuals. And then I know that you're most likely thinking about, when I say social group, you're thinking about your peer group. But you know what? I'm part of your social group now. It's not just your peer group, but when you think about Gettysburg College, think about the people that care about you. Well, I'm one of them. I'm what's called the Student Success Advocate. And some of you might be in my first year seminar from last year or this year, and I'm here to be an advocate for you. Some of you have worked for me or worked for me, and so I'm here to be that go-to, but so are your professors. So are people in dining. If you go into the dining hall and you look, some of them have the greatest stoles of gratitude because they're the ones that care about the students and they're asking them how their day is. And so the social connection doesn't have to be just your peer group, but I do want you to pay attention to what social groups you do have based on the health in your life, because you might want to switch your social group if they're not so healthy and they're not leading you down that right path. So let's talk about the financial well-being. Yesterday, I was in a J term with a dear colleague of mine, Kevin Smith, who gave a workshop, and I know MC was in that too, and he did a phenomenal job talking about the importance of finances. And when you think about finances, most of us are thinking about careers based on making a lot of money. And I don't want you to think about it that way. A lot of these well-being models leave financial well-being off, and finances, when they're off kilter in your life, you're feeling extremely stressed. Having good financial well-being isn't a measure of how much money you have. That's a terrible way to measure it. It's really, how are you managing your economic life is most important of all. You think that winning the lottery is going to make you happy? Well, guess what? It doesn't. And research will show that it gives you this little bump in happiness for a little bit of time, and then you go back to your well-being baseline again. So winning the lottery isn't that big of a deal. There's another study that was done by Harvard, and it proved that spending money on experiences far outweighs spending money on stuff. So think about when you're really coveting that new beautiful coat or those new winter boots, or you're coveting this beautiful car in your future or something. It's actually, there is a higher rate of anxiety and depression that comes out of the statistical diagnostic manual in showing higher rates of levels of depression when you're very materialistic. And so think about spending your money on experiences, just going and having a cup of tea in the commons, going for a walk around campus, walking up to the Peace Light, where it doesn't even cost you hardly anything. I also want you to think about something that's called the comparison dilemma. And this is going to be in all of these dimensions, paying attention to this. And the comparison dilemma is not rocket science, but here's a perfect example. You might love the job that you have. You love your salary, you love your coworkers, you love your commute, you love everything about it, until you find one of your colleagues from Gettysburg College is off in their career and they're making a lot more than you're making. And all of a sudden, you're not quite as happy as you were with your job. Well, it's natural and it's human nature, but it is called the comparison dilemma. It is rooted in science, and that we often will compare ourselves to others, and then we end up not being as happy as we would like to be. And that goes back to what I said in the very beginning by that scientist, Dr. June Gruber, who said, be happy with yourself first and try to avoid the comparison dilemma. And then I highly, 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 highly recommend, MC heard this yesterday, I would love for you all to go to a free financial well-being tool that we give to all of our students here at Gettysburg called iGrad. And thanks to the generous donation from an alum, class of 61, Mort Creech, because he felt like it was really important for students to understand finances and financial well-being, that he donated the funds for us to purchase this iGrad tool. The way that you get to it is go to the Gettysburg College website on the main page under admissions and aid. When you look on that and scroll to the left navigation, you'll see that it says it says financial well-being. Click on that and you can create, with your single serve sign-on with your Gettysburg College credentials, your own account. I highly recommend you do this. You can take this with you when you graduate too. It never goes away. And what it has on there is a plethora of articles. It has scholarship searches. It has courses you can take. It has hard courses, easy courses. When you first log on, it asks you to do a financial assessment, and it asks you questions like, do you know what a credit score is? Do you know why it's important, what compound interest means? Things like that. And then it teaches you how to set yourself up for success. And then the other reason why I really want you to do this and to sign up on iGrad is because now into the end of the semester, every month they're giving away $1,000. They have $1,000 monthly challenge. You just have to go in, you read an article, you answer a couple questions, and you're entered to win $1,000. So I think that that's really important for you to think about. So please go and do that. So community well-being is having a sense of engagement where you're living. And when I meet with students that are struggling, they're often struggling around the community well-being. They feel like they don't actually belong in the community. They don't see themselves in the community. There isn't anyone that looks like them or anyone that feels like them. But what's really interesting is I talk to a lot of students, and if I could just share everyone's, of course, it's all anonymous, you know, I'm not sharing this information confidential, but if I could, you would all understand. So many students feel this way. You're not alone when you feel that. It's important, of course, when you think about community, to have good drinking water and a healthy environment and less pollution, but having that sense of belonging means something. And how do you get that sense of belonging? Well, you look to join organizations. You say yes, you join clubs. You will never be given so many opportunities to have so many clubs at your feet, ready and waiting for you to be a part of it. I oversee club sports, and we have 8 different club sports. We would love to have you join our club sports. Saying yes when you see the Center for Public Service looking for volunteers to go and help in the Painted Turtle Farm, you not only develop a sense of community within the Gettysburg College environment, but you just develop a sense of community within the Gettysburg community at large, outside the walls of Gettysburg College. You get to know the townspeople. So these are ways to get yourself centered into the community. Now, of course, I would be remiss without talking about the physical well-being and having good health. And everybody always thinks of that first and foremost when it comes to well-being, especially because we have just come into the new year, and it's always the beginning of setting goals and trying to lose weight and trying to get in shape. And the Jagger Center will be packed from now until spring break, because I hope everyone will be able to go away on spring break and getting in shape for that. But having good health isn't just being physically fit, it's other dimensions, and sleep is one of them. And if you want to do well here at Gettysburg College, your sleep is your superpower. Believe it or not, sleep is, when you get the proper sleep, it resets your button every single day. And your brain is extremely active when you're sleeping. And in order to do well academically and accelerate learning, you have to get good sleep. So don't pull all-nighters anymore. Make sure that you prioritize that sleep. Now, if I were to poll you right now, I think all of you really honestly would know what good eating habits are. The situation is not really knowing what we know, but not doing it, not developing that habit. You know to avoid processed foods. You know to be careful what you eat. You know to eat the more whole foods than the junk food. But I do want to give a shout out to our dining facility, because if you are on a special diet and you don't see it being offered within the community of the dining center, they are one of the greatest dining facilities in my mind in the world. I will put that out there. And they would be very happy to help meet you where you're at if you have a special diet. And physical activity isn't just going on the treadmill in the Jager Center. Yes, you want to get your heart rate up, the cardio, but you also want to think about that strength training. You want to think about the flexibility in that as well. So it's cardio, strength, and flexibility that you need to pay attention to. There's also wearables that are out there. I actually have the Whoop. It's a wearable that tracks my sleep. And MC, can you still see my meeting? Okay, great. It's saying it logged out, but I don't think so. So you're still good, right? Okay, you can hear me. Okay, great. Thank you. I just had a pop up. So you think about, let me just make sure. Okay, we're good. So the wearables, so wearables can track your sleep at a deeper level so that you can pay attention to if you're getting that deep REM sleep or not. Okay, so let's think about creating an individualized action plan. Again, it's not just looking at what you know, it's now looking at what you need to do. And this action plan is so important for you because this is where it begins. Everything up to this point is in dry cement. You've already lived it, it's already happened. But this moment going forward is wet cement. And you can begin today, as soon as this presentation is over, to look at how are you going to set yourself up. So we are going to first start by talking about developing a mission statement. And you think about the great companies that are out there, they have mission statements. Mission statements identify your passions, your values, and what you want out of life. And it helps you focus these efforts so that you're laser focused in getting what you want in your life. My family and I actually developed a family mission statement because we wanted to decide, why are we here as a family? What's our purpose in life? And we went on a vacation and we developed a mission statement for our family. And from that mission statement, we came up with a tagline, and I have it imprinted on my bracelet that I wear often, called Small Footprint, Big Difference. We wanted to be a family that didn't have a big carbon footprint, that we were small in our undertaking with that, but we wanted to make a big difference in life. Well, you'll see on this screen, the Franklin Covey Mission Statement Builder. I actually have in the handout for you links to that. And you can go into the Franklin Covey Mission Statement Builder, which I have done, and that will help you develop a mission statement. Because often what everyone does first and foremost when the new year happens is they'll write down their goals and they'll put down what they want out of life. But they forgot the most crucial thing is why they want it. And the mission statement should always be something that you start now at this age, and please keep it forever. Because when you keep it forever, you're going to see it morphs a little bit over time, but it's really cool to see it changing, you know, as you grow, when you graduate, you change careers. Some of your values will change. It's not your parents' values, it's your values. So please think about beginning that journey of developing a mission statement, whether you want to do it in a notebook or you want to do it on your computer, however you want to do it. I highly recommend you spend some quality, quiet time developing that mission statement before you start to tackle the action plan, the to-do list. So then what I want you to do is I want you to look at the dimensions of well-being. And these dimensions are Gallup's, but like I said, you can put any dimension down here. Maybe you want to get rid of financial and add spirituality, or maybe keep financial and add spirituality. Maybe you want to add academic and add career, make career. Maybe you're an athlete, you want to put something just athletic down there. Maybe you're in the band and you want to, have that be part of it. So write out in a perfect 10, what does that look like in each of those categories? And I want you to do it in the first person present tense, as if you're living it right now. For example, if social for you, like let's say for an example, for the social category, you are a thriving, awesome college student. You have the friend groups that you are so happy to have. You meet with them every weekend and you form traditions with your friends, and it is everything you've ever dreamed of. And when you read that, it feels really exciting and good. We often will say we want to achieve a goal, but we've never thought about what does it look like before we even start to try to grow towards the end. So begin with the end in mind. What does it feel like, look like in the first person present tense? And then I want you to rank it. And maybe you're doing great in the social and you give yourself a 9 in that. It's like you're kind of like, I'm nailing that. But maybe the physical, you're like, not so much. Your physical is maybe just ranked as a 5. And so then I want you, and only then do I want you to think about getting a planner. And in the planner, I don't want you just to have a calendar. I want you to have it where it's going to be a place where you can write your goals in, write your to-do list, and a calendar where you're going to set your day up to put the things into your calendar. So you can see that I go from a big macro to micro type of level where it's the big picture thinking. Maybe you do your mission statement once a year, reevaluate it, keep this book forever, and then you set your goals up, and then you start plugging them into your planner. There are planners out there for every shape and size. I highly recommend you visit Franklin Covey's website. I've been to a lot of their workshops, and the reason why I like them so much is because they begin with the end in mind. They begin with your mission statement first and foremost. But I think it's pretty cool that it starts to set you up. So now you know what to do, and then you can add the actions to actually start to do it. So the next thing is, a lot of you are thinking about, well, I know what's going to make me happy. And it's going to be if I lose 10 pounds, if I win the lottery, if I get an A+ in this course, if I have a significant person in my life. These are the things that are going to make me happy. A lot of people think that, correct? Well, these are things that aren't necessarily going to make you happy. When you think about beauty and you think about the images, and I get it because I'm on social media too. I see it every day. The social images of the beautiful people that are out there. You feel pretty good about yourself until you see somebody else and you're like, well, I don't quite look, like them, or I'm not as thin as them, or I'm not as ripped as them, or I can't climb a mountain as quick as them. And so what's interesting is there's some data that will support in regards to not paying attention to a lot of this. It's Jackson and colleagues found they surveyed 2,000 obese individuals. And what they were looking at was their physiological and their psychological responses in losing weight. And physiologically, they obviously were healthier. They needed to lose weight. The obesity was causing major health concerns. But what was very interesting is psychologically, it really wasn't that great of a gain. So a lot of us think that we're after that perfect body, that there is no such thing. And yet it's really eating at our ultimate well-being. So I go back to that concept I gave you in the beginning from Dr. June Gruber, that it's about who you are first and foremost, and trying to love yourself just as you are before you're thinking about, maybe you do, you would feel healthier if you lost weight, or you got in the weight room and you got stronger, or you could run faster. But I want you to make sure that you're paying attention to the right reasons why you're doing that. And you think about, there's a lot of research around cosmetic surgery, and those individuals that are getting cosmetic surgery obviously are not happy with their bodies, and they keep getting more and more cosmetic surgery. It goes back to that comparison dilemma. right? There's always somebody that's fitter than you are, and always somebody that's richer than you are. It's just so, again, we have to go back to being happy with who we are. When you think about money, this is a big one. So here is a quick story for you. There's a fisherman, and he's in this beautiful community, and every morning he wakes up and he goes out and he fishes and he catches the fish and he brings it into town and he sells the fish. And then he goes and he takes a siesta. And then at night, he gets his guitar and he goes down to the town square and he sings for the community, and he couldn't be happier with his well-being. And along comes some commercial fishermen, and they said, well, if you invest and buy some more fishing boats, you're going to get more fish and you're going to be making more money. And he's like, okay. So he buys more boats and he goes out and he gets more fish. And now he doesn't have time to take a siesta because he's got a lot of books to balance. And the heck no, he can't go out and sing in the square because he's got to, hire more people to run the boat. And finally, he has some money, enough money that he can go on vacation, and he finds an island where he can go out in the morning and do a little fishing and take a little siesta and then go down to the town square and play his guitar. So you think about money and you think about how is it going to bring you joy? And maybe you already have the joy. You might have a fallacy on thinking that more money is going to make you happier. Like I've shared, a lot of people play the lottery. Do you know we have $70 billion are spent yearly on lottery tickets? That's a lot of money. People really trying to think that it's going to make them happier. Well, research has shown that it does not make you happier. That in fact, if you won millions of dollars, sometimes it sets you up for not being as happy, because you start to think, do people like me because I have money, or do they really like who I am? Also, going back to what I said earlier, when you are focused on materialistic things versus experiences, you have higher anxiety and depression, research will show. And it's more, it's been based in the Diagnostic Statistical Manual that can bring that about with that. There are two individuals I want you to know, Danny Kahneman and Angus Deaton they're psychologists, but they won the Nobel Prize in economics. So they're very bright individuals because they wanted to study, is there a threshold to how much you should have? And believe it or not, it's not a lot. They did find a threshold around $75,000 in a salary, $75,000, $80,000 in America is a pretty good amount for individuals to start to achieve good well-being. And you think, well, 75,000 is a lot. Well, then I'm going to double my well-being by making 150,000. And it does not pan out that way. The rate of return on investment is not exposed like that. So paying attention to thinking about, it's going to be great for me once I make a lot of money. Research shows us it's not. Getting good grades. What's interesting is her name is Livia, and her colleagues did a research with the University of California system. And they asked students, if you got a great grade in your course, the highest that you think you could get, how would that change your well-being? And then the same course, if you got the worst grade possible, what would it change with your well-being? And then they let the study go along, and then the students got their grades. And those that got a grade that was super high, well, guess what? They overestimated their happiness. They didn't jump up to the highest rate of happiness that they thought they would. They jumped up, it went above their mediocre, with their well-being. And the same went the opposite way. It wasn't absolutely devastating to them. They were bummed. It was a little bit lower in their well-being threshold, but it wasn't. So when you put a lot of stress around your grades, think about, again, going back to your mission statement. What's the purpose of your education? Why are you here? Is it to get the A+ in that course? And if it is, good for you. That's fantastic. But is it to get you the good overall GPA to help you with grad school or getting a career? And again, it goes back to that mission statement. Finding love, funny story, true story. A student of mine years ago who worked for me said, Cindy, I want a relationship desperately while I'm in college. And it was our biggest joke. He started working with me when he was a first year. And every year he never had a relationship, and he was so bummed about it. He wanted love in a desperate way. And I was laughing, and always, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. You're going to find someone. You haven't graduated yet. Well, anyway, I saw him graduation day, and he comes up to me graduation day after he got his diploma. He goes, guess what? I met this amazing woman. We stayed up all night talking. Oh my gosh, I'm in love. And I giggled, I'm like, well, you're in like, I don't know that you're in love, but he's like, oh, she's the one. Well, anyway, it did end up working out for him, and they did get married, and they have 2 children. But a lot of us think that love is going to make us happy. I go back to what I said in the very beginning, and love and getting into relationships with others. Yes, there is a bump when you get married of your well-being, but they call it the honeymoon phase for a reason. It's about a 2-year bump, and then you go back to baseline with your well-being, which is kind of funny because a lot of people think, oh, once I meet that significant other, my life will be fantastic. Well, again, it goes back to you, and you make sure that your life is fantastic right now. And if love comes into it, well, that just adds icing on the cake. But you don't need love in that regard in a significant relationship to have the highest level of well-being. You can have it even without being in relationships. And then I want to share some tips to help you start to achieve your overall well-being. So one of my favorite authors and research is Sonia Lyubomirsky, and she has written this book, The How of Happiness, and she does a lot of research around well-being. And she has found an interesting research. Is there actually a threshold to our well-being, a set point to our well-being? She wanted to know, there are people that the glass is half full and the glass is half empty. She did research around this, and she did actually find some set points with this. And most of us have a well-being set point that is 50% is determined by genetics. 10% is determined by any type of life-changing event, maybe a wedding, or maybe something terrible like you have a you become paraplegic or something. But 40% is really in your hands in how you're going to set yourself up for well-being. And that's the beauty of this lecture, is it's again in your hands to make a difference. You don't have to buy anything to have it begin today. They also discovered that you have this locus of control, and you have the ability to think about internally, are you able to make your day a great day, or are you the person that has an internal locus of control? You have control of your day, or an external locus of control. It's like, it's going to snow 8 feet on Sunday, and it's going to put you in a foul mood. It's going to make you feel terrible. Well, all of you have this internal locus of control to make a difference in your life. So please start to think about using that. If I had you all in a classroom right now and you had a piece of paper in front of you, I would have you write your name 5 times with your dominant hand and 5 times with your non-dominant hand. And then I would have you lift your signatures up, and your signatures would show you which one did you do better at. And of course, it's the dominant hand. It's easier. You know exactly how you do it. Well, finding your signature strength. If there's one thing I ask you to do, well, 2 things. I want you, if you could build a mission statement, that would be phenomenal. And to go to this link that I will give in the handout on how to find your signature strengths. It's a beautiful thing to do, because research backs the power of when you can tap into what your strengths are, you have better confidence, you increase your happiness, you reduce your stress, and the list goes on and on, how powerful it is to know your signature strengths. So please, in that handout, I will put my email in the end, and you can all email me, and then I will just send that handout right to you. So please look at doing your signature strengths. And then the last thing, the last couple of slides I want to share with you is actual homework for you. And again, I can't follow up, obviously, but if you are truly looking at creating meaning and starting the new year off and thinking about developing well-being, this is all vetted in research. This is vetted in everything I learned in the foundations of positive psychology and the science of well-being is some of these different tips and tools. So one, you've heard of this, is called a gratitude journal, and giving gratitude helps your state of, and recognizes is your state of mind, and it recognizes and appreciates what's around you. The gratitude journal can be a binder, it can be a loose leaf notebook, it can be a leather notebook, or it could just be you taking pictures of things that you're grateful for in your life and just keeping that. A lot of people use their Instagram as a way to share gratitude. Random acts of kindness will also lift up your state of well-being. Doing something nice for someone else. You've heard the people in line in Starbucks and then they pay for the person behind them. Well, I challenge you to just do 1 or 2 random acts of kindness before you come back to school and trying to help somebody else. And maybe it's just reaching out to a friend that's going through a hard time and saying, I'm going to give you an hour of my undivided attention. I'm not even going to talk. I am just going to listen. Please vet with me what you're going through. And I'll just ask you some questions to help you vet. The social connections, developing the social connections. Research shows how powerful those social connections are. And I know that you have groups of friends, but I also want you to think about the people that you don't know, saying hi to the person that just you bought the coffee from in the lunch line at the Commons, asking them how their day is, trying to develop and expand that social connection, getting to know your professors, reaching out to me and I'll treat you to a cup of coffee in the Commons, joining clubs and organizations. And then some last pieces of advice. Of course, I would be remiss without saying exercise, because I happen to oversee all those facilities. And you know why I believe exercise is super important to boost and elevate your moods. But again, getting that deep sleep and putting a reminder in your phone just for this week, or try it for 2 or 3 days. You're going to go to bed and get 8 hours of sleep for the next 3 nights and see how that sleep impacts you. And then the last one is meditation. And what meditation does is it calms the nerves, it calms your brain, it has you focus on just one thing, and then your brain isn't spinning out of control. And when it spins out of control, it creates that anxiety and that depression in us. So learning how to meditate will definitely help if you feel like you have anxiety and depression and a lot of stress in your life. And the last super nugget is what's called savoring. It's a new term that is starting to be coined. And savoring is stepping out of an experience and pausing and reflecting on it. In fact, as I was preparing for this talk, I was walking into work today. I live near campus, and I savored my walk. I walked past the Clark Field, and the sun was hitting the chairs and hitting the goals, and it was beautiful. And I just paused and I reflected in that. And savoring, actually, it helps you remember the good stuff, the positives. It keeps your mind from ruminating. Ruminating is when your mind is spinning out of control. It's constantly telling you a loop over and over and over, which is what is causing anxiety and depression. And so thinking about trying to focus on just that specific moment. And it also helps you have gratitude. So think about savoring the moments in your life. And the last couple of slides are some of my favorite quotes. For everyone, well-being is a journey. The secret is committing to that journey and taking those first steps with hope and belief in yourself. You can use this mind either to create well-being or misery for yourself. You have the choice. You can decide. Again, when I went back to that internal, external locus of control, you can control it. Remember what I said. Everything from this point on now is dry cement. Everything going forward is wet cement. So what will you create? And then every day is a new beginning. Take a deep breath, smile, and start again. Maybe the past, there were things that weren't so great. It's over. It's done. Now we begin the journey of starting today. And what are you going to do with it? Starting at 1 o'clock Eastern time this afternoon. So I want to thank you all so much for being here and being part of this. And I'm going to share my email address, and you all can email me, and I am going to send you the handout with all the links that I had in regards to some of the things that I've pointed through with the science and backed by the science and Franklin Covey and how to do that mission statement. So most importantly, you're in a community today. You gave me your precious time, which I hope there were 2 or 3 nuggets that you'll remember for the rest of your life. That was my goal in designing this and hoping that it made a difference. And also know that I'm your advocate. I am here on campus. You know where to find me. You have my email. I'm in the Jager Center, and I'm here to support you, and I appreciate it. And thank you for signing up for this J term. We're very grateful. And I will welcome you all back when you get back to campus. Be safe.